For the first time in human history, a question that never existed before has become central to women's lives: to have children or not. Today, we explore this silent revolution that's redefining what it means to be a woman in the 21st century. For centuries, motherhood was considered woman's natural destiny. Marriage led to children, children led to purpose, and purpose led to fulfillment. This was the unquestioned script written for women across cultures and generations. From ancient Greek society, where women were valued primarily for their reproductive capacity, to Victorian England, where a woman's worth was measured by her ability to produce heirs, to the 1950s ideal of suburban motherhood, the narrative remained remarkably consistent. But something fundamental has shifted in recent decades. The ancient assumption that every woman desires children is being challenged, and the answer isn't simple. We're witnessing a quiet rebellion against biological determinism. Women are questioning whether their deepest desires are truly their own, or simply the result of millions of years of evolutionary programming. This isn't just about career versus family, or freedom versus responsibility. It's about something much deeper: the nature of choice itself. Are we free agents making conscious decisions? Or are we sophisticated biological machines following genetic imperatives we mistake for personal preferences? Arthur Schopenhauer once suggested something that would have been considered heretical in his time. What if our instinctive reaction to babies isn't love, but just nature using us to keep the cycle going? What if that overwhelming feeling we call cute when we see a baby is actually just our biology saying, reproduce, don't question it? The will to live, he argued, manifests itself chiefly as an effort to maintain the species. Schopenhauer believed that we mistake our biological drives for personal desires. When a woman feels drawn to motherhood, is that her authentic self speaking? Or is that evolution speaking through her? He would argue that most of what we think are our deepest personal longings are actually the species ensuring its survival through us. This philosophical insight has become a lived reality for millions of women today. Modern neuroscience has shown us that maternal instincts are driven by powerful hormonal cocktails: oxytocin, prolactin, dopamine. These chemicals create feelings so intense they can feel like divine calling. But knowing the mechanism behind, the feeling raises an unsettling question: how much of what we feel about having children is really us? And how much is just sophisticated biological programming we've never noticed? Growing numbers of women today find fulfillment in career, travel, relationships, creativity, and personal growth rather than motherhood. They're choosing what feels authentic to them over what society expects of them. Some have come to recognize the biological programming that drives maternal behavior and have made the conscious decision to opt out. These women often describe feeling like they're swimming against a powerful current. Every family gathering becomes a minefield of well-meaning but invasive questions. When will you have children? Don't you want to experience motherhood? Aren't you worried about missing out? Every friend's pregnancy announcement triggers a complex mix of emotions: happiness for their friend, but also a subtle pressure to examine their own choices. Every movie plot that ends with a woman finding completion through motherhood reinforces the message that something essential is missing from their lives. The cultural messaging is relentless and often subtle. Advertisements for everything from insurance to cars feature happy families with children. Social media feeds overflow with baby photos and proud parenting moments. Even career-focused women's magazines regularly feature articles about work-life balance that assume children are part of the equation. The assumption of eventual motherhood is so deeply embedded in our culture that choosing otherwise feels like swimming upstream against a flood. Yet these women persist in asking, why should I sacrifice my life's potential for an abstract social good I never agreed to? They point out that having children affects everything: sleep, finances, career opportunities, relationship dynamics, physical health, mental energy, and personal freedom. They argue that while society benefits from new citizens and taxpayers, The burden of creating and raising these future contributors falls disproportionately on women. The responses they receive are telling. They're labeled selfish, incomplete, unnatural. They're told they'll change their minds when they meet the right person, or when their biological clock starts ticking louder. They're warned they'll regret their decision and die lonely and unfulfilled. But perhaps they're simply creating their own values rather than accepting what's been prescribed for them. The choice to remain childless can be seen as choosing conscious freedom over biological destiny. It's a form of rebellion against the assumption that biology equals destiny. On the other side of this philosophical divide stands Simone de Beauvoir, who, despite arguing in The Second Sex that women often become trapped by their biology, also acknowledged that some women find profound meaning in consciously choosing motherhood. Her famous declaration that one is not born but rather becomes a woman applies here. For some, becoming a mother is part of that chosen identity. But here's where de Beauvoir's insight becomes crucial. The key word is choice. She distinguished between women who drift into motherhood because it's expected and women who actively choose it as part of their self-creation. The difference isn't in the outcome, but in the consciousness behind the decision. A woman who becomes pregnant because she stopped using birth control without really deciding to try. For a baby is having a very different experience from a woman who consciously decides she wants to create and nurture a new life. Many women who choose motherhood speak of it as transcendent, a pure, unconditional form of love that connects them to something greater than themselves. They describe feeling drawn to the creative act of growing a human being, to the intimacy of pregnancy and breastfeeding, to the profound responsibility of shaping a young mind and heart. They see having children as the ultimate expression of their capacity to nurture and create life. For them, motherhood represents what Kierkegaard would have called a leap of faith, embracing uncertainty for the possibility of profound meaning. They acknowledge that having children will change everything about their lives in ways they can't fully predict or control. They know they'll lose sleep, spend enormous amounts of money, worry constantly, and face challenges they've never imagined. But they're willing to make that leap because they believe the rewards, the depth of love, the sense of purpose, the continuation of their legacy, will be worth it. These women view having children as part of the natural order, but not in a passive way. They see it as an active contribution to the continuation of humanity, a way to pass on wisdom, values, and love to future generations. They believe deeply that what we do now echoes in eternity, and that raising conscious, caring human beings is among the most important work anyone can do. They want to teach a child to read, to comfort them through nightmares, to watch them discover their talents and passions, to help them become good people who contribute positively to the world. But both sides face the same inexorable biological reality: time. Female fertility operates on a schedule that doesn't accommodate endless deliberation. Fertility begins its decline in the late 20s, drops significantly after 35, and falls off a cliff after 40. Eggs age, chromosomal abnormalities increase, and pregnancy becomes increasingly risky. Time becomes the ultimate constraint on choice. This creates a uniquely modern paradox. Women today have more options than any generation in history. They can become surgeons, CEOs, artists, adventurers, scholars. They can travel the world, build businesses, change laws, create art that moves people. They have access to contraception that gives them complete control over when and whether to become pregnant. But they also face an unprecedented burden: infinite possibilities constrained by a finite biological window. The psychological weight of this can be crushing. Every year that passes narrows the window a little more. Every career opportunity, every adventure, every relationship that needs attention becomes a choice made at the potential expense of motherhood. The paradox is that the more options we have, the less satisfied we often become with our choices. Decision paralysis becomes a real threat when the stakes feel this high. Understanding the biology behind maternal desires doesn't diminish choice. It illuminates what we're choosing between. Whether driven by hormones or conscious decision, both paths require immense courage to live authentically in a world that judges women harshly, regardless of what they choose. Society has created a no-win situation for women. Those who choose to remain childless are labeled selfish, unnatural, incomplete. They're told they'll regret their decision, that they don't understand what they're missing, that they're somehow failing at their most basic biological function. Meanwhile, mothers are asked if they've given up their dreams, whether they miss their freedom, if they regret sacrificing their careers. They're simultaneously praised for their selflessness and pitied for their limitations. Both choices challenge different aspects of social expectations, and both require women to develop thick skin against judgment. The childless woman must resist the narrative that she's incomplete. The mother must resist the narrative that she's given up her potential. Both must find ways to live authentically while surrounded by voices telling them they've chosen wrong. Perhaps the deepest truth about this choice is that we can never know with certainty what path would have made us happier. The woman who chooses children will never know what achievements might have been possible with total focus on her career. The woman who chooses to remain childless will never know what depths of love and meaning might have opened up through motherhood. This uncertainty is part of the human condition, but it feels particularly acute with this decision because it's so final and so consequential. There's no trial run for motherhood, no way to test drive the experience before committing. And unlike career changes or relationship decisions, this choice shapes not just your own life, but creates or doesn't create entirely new human lives. True, wisdom might lie in accepting that we know nothing about the unlived life. The grass is always greener in the imagination, where we picture perfect versions of the paths we didn't take. Whether we choose children or not, finding peace means accepting our choice fully without constant comparison to what might have been. It means recognizing that both paths offer profound rewards and profound challenges, just different ones. What this dilemma represents is something unprecedented: true choice. For the first time in history, women can consciously decide their relationship with motherhood. This isn't about having children or not having them. It's about the freedom to choose consciously, based on authentic self-knowledge rather than biological programming or social pressure. The implications of this freedom are still rippling through society. We're seeing declining birth rates in developed countries, later marriages, smaller families, and entirely new forms of fulfillment and family structures. We're also seeing new kinds of anxiety and decision fatigue as women grapple with choices their grandmothers never had to consider. This choice represents the culmination of centuries of struggle for women's autonomy. The right to vote, the right to own property, the right to work, the right to control reproduction. All of these battles were fought so that women could have genuine choices about their lives. The choice about motherhood may be the most fundamental choice of all, because it shapes everything else that follows. Everything can be taken from a person, but one thing: the freedom to choose one's attitude in any given circumstances. Whether you choose parenthood or the path less traveled, choose consciously. Choose authentically. Choose without apology. What matters isn't the choice itself, but that it's truly yours. That it emerges from your deepest understanding of who you are and what will bring meaning to your life. That it's made with full awareness of both the costs and the rewards, and with acceptance of the uncertainty that comes with any major life decision. Your authentic choice, whatever it is, deserves respect. The woman who chooses motherhood deserves support in her decision and recognition that she's taking on one of life's most challenging and important roles. The woman who chooses to remain childless deserves respect for her autonomy and recognition that there are many ways to contribute to the world and find fulfillment. Both paths require courage. Both offer profound rewards. Both come with significant challenges. The goal isn't to make the right choice. There isn't one. The goal is to make your choice consciously and authentically, and then to live it fully.